I went to Our Lady of Walsingham on a young adults pilgrimage. When the priests taught us what the Eucharist was, that is the creator of the universe in the simple form of bread in every tabernacle of the world, I was literally holding back tears.
Was there a point in your life you can throw a dart at and say, that's where it started for me in terms of Catholicism?
I would put it down to one person, and that man's name is Bishop Robert Barron. I remember I was in a real crisis of faith. When you see a life-size depiction of your Lord on the cross suffering, it really hits you like, whoa. The beauty of God in the Catholic Church, especially Our Lady, is able to pierce the heart of the intellect. And there's no intellectual argument that can do that to a man. It's only beauty that can do that to you.
Have you witnessed a miracle?
In terms of a physical miracle,
Peter.
Roy.
Petros.
The Rock. It's not the worst name in the world, is it, for a Catholic convert?
Yeah. Why are you Catholic?
In short, I went on a long Christian journey. I think it took me about 10 years, but I eventually slowly came to the realization that the Catholic Church was the true church founded by Jesus of Nazareth. And I realised I couldn't be separate from it anymore. Even once I'd become an Anglo-Catholic for several years, which was the movement that John Henry Newman helped to found. Even being part of that, being so close to Catholicism, it wasn't enough, and I was just desperate to be a member of that Catholic Church. You know, you see, especially on social media, you know, instead of people feeling jealous over looks or women or cars or whatever, I would see beautiful Marian and Eucharistic processions and, you know, talks by priests and stuff, and I would always think to myself, I believe everything they believe, but I'm not a part of that yet, and that always hurt me. And eventually I came to the realization that this is true and it's going to hurt, but I need to do it. I need to leave the Anglican Church and I need to become a Catholic. So in short, that's why I'm a Catholic, because I believe it's true.
Did you start Anglican, or was there something before that? Where did it start?
So all my life I've had an Anglican Christian identity. So there's never been any point in my life when I've seen myself as an agnostic, as an atheist. I've never had a label as a non-religious person. Even when I haven't been very, very religious, I would still see myself as a Christian to some degree. So I was raised in what I would call the low to mid Anglican church. So if you've ever watched The Vicar of Dibley, for those watching, if you haven't watched it, do. It's sort of like the Anglican Father Ted is how I describe it. And imagine that, and I know it's a sitcom, so it's not real, but they really do capture the culture of the Central C of E quite well in that humorous series. So that's what I was raised in, the suburban, middle-of-the-road Anglican church. Mm-hmm. Not particularly fiery, but, you know, it gave me a good Christian identity. It gave me the foundation of where I would sort of start my faith journey from. And so, you know, I went in and out of that. You know, I was always loosely connected with it. Even in my teenage years, when I wasn't going to Holy Communion on a Sunday, I would still join in with like the youth group and things like that. And I would still do, you know, the trips away and stuff like that. But it was only really when I was 19 that I made a conscious decision on the way home from work that I was going to really nail down the Christian faith. I was going to really find out more about it and really try and make myself a Christian. And that was the beginning of my journey. And so, Christianity's always been there in different forms, whether that be on my journey, the Low Anglican Church, the Mid Anglican Church, the evangelical sphere. I spent some time at Soul Survivor Watford and St Andrew's Chorleywood, which are very evangelical churches. Yeah, Christianity's always been there. Jesus has always been there. Had slightly different feelings about him at different points, but yeah, it's always different churches, different bits of the same church as well, but always the same Jesus is how I look at it.
This is a question of curiosity, but when you say evangelical, it doesn't necessarily mean what it means in the traditional sense, as in the non-denominational kind of churches that are super super evangelical, for lack of a better word.
I would say the evangelical churches I was a part of, I would say they were super evangelical. Yeah, they were very, very charismatic, very what in the CV you would call a happy, clappy, hands in the air kind of evangelical.
How does that combine with something like liturgy? I'm sure liturgy was a part of Anglicanism as well.
Yeah.
Because liturgy isn't really a part of non-denominational
they don't like it, do they? There are some non-doms that I know of that say, no, I don't like praying as a group. No, it feels cult-like. And it's like, well, the early church did it, so I don't really know what your problem is. So liturgy isn't something I had a sort of like mental awareness of until I was away from it. When I discovered the evangelical sphere, something didn't quite feel right. Yeah, it was only once I was away from liturgy that I realised what I was missing. And I realised that there was a sort of liturgy to the evangelical sphere. But it's in like there was a template to it. You'd worship for a bit, and then there'd be a sermon, and they'd worship for a bit more. Yeah. And then there'd be an altar call, and then people would slowly leave and have coffee.
Yeah.
I think with the liturgy, you only realise how good you've got it when you've lost it, if that makes sense. Yeah, obviously the evangelicals don't have liturgy like we would know it in the Catholic or the Anglican Church.
Yeah.
But when you're only raised with liturgy, as far as you're aware, that's all you know. And you think that everyone must have liturgy. And so it's very strange being away from it, but also not being told you're away from it. Mm-hmm. And it's only when you're away from it for a long time that you realise what you're missing.
Yeah.
Like I remember being at Soul Survivor and getting to the end of some of their services and just thinking, what on earth am I doing here? Like this is really missing something here. Like, do these guys not know what they're missing out on with the liturgy? So I
guess a lot of it comes down to westernized culture. So cultures being so westernized that certain acts or traditions can look cultish because the Western world is more freedom.
We're all freedom, 1960s, nice liberal, me, individualism.
And I think that also kind of sheds light on why, which is not a bad thing, right? But why the evangelical, like the low church Protestants, they focus more on the resurrection of Jesus, and also why they say they don't have the crucifix because Christ is raised from the dead. He doesn't need to be on the cross.
Yeah, we don't just think about him anymore.
Yes. I think the whole idea of freedom kind of plays into it. Also explains the whole faith alone thing. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to work. It's already been paid for it. It's free.
Everything's
Salvation
already done.
Is free. Like it is, but
it's almost like commercialism, isn't it? It's like, what can I get that's free? It needs no effort from me. It's all. Well,
yeah, that's one aspect of it that's very subconscious, I think, because it started with good intentions, right? It started with Luther with good intentions, and then it got dumbed down further and further and further, until elements were getting ripped out of the liturgy to what is a praise and worship now? It's the part of the mass that is the scripture, the sermon, and the hymns.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, it's the slow dissection of the mass until you get the bit that's completely inoffensive. Doesn't really have much ritual to it, and basically, what you get is ultimately hymns. Not even hymns anymore. It's songs. But being a bit highbrow here. Obviously there is a big difference between a hymn and like a modern evangelical worship song, by like the cadence and the vocal range and things like the keys and things like that. Basically, you're right. It's just basically hymns, a sermon, and more hymns, and then you leave.
I always think about this. I'm kind of from like a very villagey area of India, if you will. So to my knowledge, there are no Protestant churches there. There's only Catholic churches there, and if you were to have a Protestant church there, I don't think the westernized music would be of much value over there. They might not enjoy it as much as the Westerners enjoy their little Western music, but the ritualistic aspect of it, or the mass, just the way it's structured out, like these illiterate people, they have a chance to worship, they have a chance to do something with their faith, And I don't see that being the case for illiterate village people who don't really have the means to be, or the desire to be literate. They just want to take care of their families, plow the fields and whatnot. I don't see the means in a Protestant church, or to be more specific, evangelical church, for such people to be catered to. I guess the universality of the Mass such that, be it in the most random village in the world, no one's ever heard of.
You'll be able to follow the Mass.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the way to the Rome.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing, and I think all of us celebrating the Eucharist together is what essential unity is.
No, you're preaching to the converted. I totally agree with all of that. Like, even when I was in Tallinn, which is, well, it's right on the border. Well, obviously there's a sea between there and Helsinki, but you're right up against basically the North Pole there. And even when you're that far away from home, when there's only like a couple of hours of daylight a day and stuff, there was still a Catholic church in that city.
Wow.
And it wasn't even a Latin Rite church in another language, like that did the Novus Ordo in, like something like that. It was a Ukrainian Catholic church, so it looked much more like an Orthodox Divine Liturgy. But even then, when it was completely alien to me, you're standing up for the whole Mass, you do the sign of the cross this way round. Yeah. I think I counted about 100 times. And, even when they're doing their Ukrainian hymns and the rituals and things like that, I could still follow the Mass. Even then, I could still follow roughly what was going on. And I'd never received communion the Eastern way either, but I just intuitively knew what to do.
Yeah.
You just follow everyone else. You follow the cue. You kneel down ever so slightly in the Orthodox, well, the Eastern Rite. You have your hands like this. You just kneel down ever so slightly, and you open your mouth, and they pour the consecrated wine and the consecrated bread into your mouth. And because they confirm babies there, even the babies will have the consecrated wine.
Wow.
And the consecrated host.
That's so cool.
And I was just like, and I just thought, I am so far from home. I am in a completely alien place in a very, very, very secular country, and I still have a home here. And I remember it was just a little memory. It was nothing much, but I think during the homily, he mentioned something about the Taizé pilgrims that were there. And me and my friend Cameron, he's ginger, so he's very, very clearly not from around there. And I remember these little old ladies in front of us looked around at us with this very, very almost angelic smile, as if to say, "I'm so happy that you're here. Like, you are so, so welcome to be here. I'm so happy that you are trying to fit in with this. I'm so glad that you feel like you're welcome here with us, in communion with us."
Yeah.
And I've never experienced that in any other church.
Was there a point in your life that you can throw a dart at and say, that's where it started for me in terms of Catholicism?
That's a good question. I would say it's quite a big dart. Think of it as maybe a small dart on a big dartboard. I would put it down to one person, and that man's name is Bishop Robert Barron. I remember I was in a real crisis of faith about basically Christian fundamentals. I'd gone round, William Lane Craig, Ravi Zacharias, every all the mainstream like Christian apologetic speakers, and no one had a concrete answer, or maybe even just an answer in general that I could hold on to and be like, yeah, that makes sense. It was only when I discovered the work of Bishop Barron that things start to make sense. And I think it was him. It was the mysticism and the depth of Catholicism that he spoke about, because he's always referencing back to Aquinas. He's always referring back to the early church.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, hang on. These pagans, they had the same objections that these new atheists do now. And it taught me a new approach to Christianity that I'd never seen before, a mystical approach, a historic approach, an entrenched, deep approach to these big questions in life, and accepting that we may not have all the answers. You can accept that there are different ways of approaching these questions, of meditating upon them, of growing from these questions, but you're not going to have all the knowledge, because we're not God. We're not the magisterium. We're not the Pope.
Yeah.
We follow a church that has grappled with these questions for 2,000 years, and we follow them. So if I had to put it on a dartboard, it's Bishop Robert Barron that was my catalyst to becoming Catholic. But that wasn't enough. But because this is the thing with the intellect, very, very rarely is the intellect enough to change someone's heart.
100%.
It was the beauty of Catholicism that he presented. And he didn't really have to do anything. He's not an artist, as far as I'm aware. Sorry if you're watching this, Bishop, and you are an artist. But as far as he's not an artist or anything like that. He hasn't produced any beautiful sculptures or anything like that I could look at. But as he's speaking, you can almost... It's almost like the beauty of Catholicism is just there, you're just what a priest will casually wear. There's a sort of beauty in that, and as you read around these subjects, there's always a picture of Mary in the article or something like that. And as an Anglican, like especially at the middle of the road Anglican, when you just see any statue of Our Lady, even the most basic statue, it really throws you back. You're like, it's like a picture of her. I haven't seen this before. There was something about it that just hit me. And there's another memory as well. It was this church near me where I grew up, St. Mary's. I think I was picking someone up from something or another one time when I was maybe like 18, 19 years old. And there was this huge white, almost marble-esque statue of a crucifix in the courtyard of this church. And I'm sure it's something that the parishioners get used to and just walk by every day and don't really think about it. But as a Protestant, when you see that... When you see a life-size depiction of your Lord on the cross suffering, it really hits you like, whoa, there's something to this place. There's something I don't have here. There's something that's hitting me like nothing has ever hit me before. And I think that's the beauty of God, the beauty of God in the Catholic Church, how he is able to, especially Our Lady, is able to pierce the heart of the intellect. Almost like a diamond sword that could cut like nothing else, can get right through your heart, and there's no intellectual argument that can do that to a man. Yeah. It's only beauty that can do that to you.
It's Scott Hahn once said this. I don't know if he said it actually, but he actually recommended it to someone. I don't know the full story, so I'm kind of paraphrasing. Someone calls him up like, "What's with all this Mary stuff? I don't know how to get past that," and he was like, do you know what? Just pray the rosary. And I've heard a million arguments. Is that if you speak to an apologist and say, what's with all the Mary stuff? I don't know. They'll start off like, well, let's open Genesis 3. Yeah, right. The woman in Genesis, the woman in Revelation, the woman in...
The new Eve and this and that. You could go to this. You go, look, Revelation. Yeah. She's got the moon on her... How many stars is it? I forget how many stars.
12 stars.
The 12 stars and the moon under her feet. She will trample upon the serpent. Yeah, it's you could do that. But what if you show them a beautiful statue of Our Lady of Walsingham?
Yeah.
What if you showed them an image of the three shepherd children listening to Our Lady of Fatima, showing her bleeding heart?
Yeah. Well, they would kind of still call it idolatry and say, well, this is all cool, but it's not Jesus kind of an attitude, I guess. But that just becomes kind of a fallacy from the Catholic perspective, because you can't really separate the two. So I really like his advice where he said, just pray the rosary and then see what comes of it. Like, there is no intellectual argument that you can make that is more powerful than just pray the rosary. You have a problem with Mary, just pray the rosary. You have a problem with Saint Christopher, just pray the Saint Christopher, right? And see what happens.
Just a simple one. This was another big part of my journey to specifically the Catholic Church rather than the Anglo-Catholic Church. I was working in Poland at the time. So naturally, I was flying a lot to and from London from Poland, and I saw just a very nonchalant, presumably Polish man, make the sign of the cross before the plane took off, and that really, really struck me that a man is thinking about God just in his everyday life, casually,
right?
Not in a hyper-intellectual way or anything like that. Just the plane's taking off. Better consecrate myself to the Lord just in case anything bad happens.
Yeah.
And there's a real beauty in the simplicity of Catholicism. As you just said, just pray the rosary.
Yeah.
Go to the Holy House of Walsingham. Just speak to your mum.
Yeah. I recently heard Keith Nestor say, because this is a question that you will get very often, and I'm sure a lot of Protestants are watching this. The most common question, which is very understandable, they ask, but where is the rosary in the Bible, right? To which Keith Nestor answered, it really struck me when he said this. He said, the rosary is not found in the Bible, but the Bible is found in the rosary.
Yeah.
Again, like if you're asking that question, you probably don't know what the rosary is, first of all. And so just get a chaplet and read the rosary. But you don't have to pray it, right? Just read it, see, and you'll find, to be more specific, get a scriptural rosary.
Yeah.
So get a scriptural rosary and just read it, right? You will see that the whole Bible, salvation history is summarized in the rosary, and you meditate on it through the perspective of Mary in a sense. But just look at it, just open it and read it. But most people who have a problem don't quite know what the rosary is. They just associate it with some kind of a pagan ritual with the beads and
the idolatry of Mary's a pagan goddess or something weird like that.
It's understandable when you don't look at it, because from the outside it kind of looks like it's the same as from the outside. If you look at a praise and worship, it looks like a Coldplay concert. Yeah. But when you're inside is when you hear the lyrics and you're like, oh, they're actually singing about Jesus.
Yeah. Whereas from the outside, it looks like something else.
Yes. It looks like a concert, right? You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But it's the same with the rosary. Go inside, go deeper into it, and then you will see that the Bible is in there. It's just scripture. It's what you love the most, like as Protestants, right? Scripture. It's all in there. So just read it, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's another interesting question for you. Have you witnessed a miracle? And when I say miracle, I don't mean in the vague sense. I mean like something so unexplainable that you can't assign any other word to it and just say this was a miracle.
In terms of a physical miracle, something that you'd be able to tangibly see, measure, feel, it was when I was exploring the Christian faith more. As I was getting more into it, I rejoined my choir in my home Anglican church and things like that. And it was one of my dad's friends, older chap from the boomer generation, and he says to me, Peter, bear in mind, he's not religious, and he's very honest in that. But he said, oh, Peter, when I was just on my way out somewhere, he said, Peter, say a prayer for me, yeah? And he was being serious. He wasn't joking. He was like, as if to say, I might not fully believe this, but I know you do, so you pray for me. A week or two later, he was in a very, very, very bad car accident that I was behind him in. So he was in an old 1940s, like World War II, open hatched Jeep. No seatbelts or doors or anything like that. I was the support vehicle behind it. And I remember it very, very clearly. I had to give a police statement and stuff. This car pulled out. So there's a junction here. A car is pulling in here. A Mercedes, I think it was an E-Class, hit into it. This car went spinning round, whacked the side of his Jeep, but it was at just the right angle, so it didn't hit him. It hit the front of the Jeep. Yeah. And instead of him going flying, like he may have done if it was at the wrong angle at just the wrong time or something like that, all he got was, I think he might have got a bruise and just a little bit of a shunt that way. And he was really, really shaken up. He was crying a bit, and stuff during this. It all went a bit blurry. I remember jumping out of the car and like rushing to the Mercedes to get the woman out of the car and stuff. The adrenaline takes over, doesn't it? And I just think it was awfully coincidental that he's never, ever asked me before then or after then to pray for him. But it was that one moment that he asked me that, and coincidentally that happened very, very, very soon afterwards. So that's a little something that's always stuck with me. Would I send this to the Vatican as a miracle as such to investigate? There's not enough there to investigate. Yeah. We've all got these analogies of things that have happened in our life like that. The other one that I would say was it was a miraculous spiritual conversion of my heart and soul to the Eucharist, and that happened at Our Lady of Walsingham in 2021. So this was when I was deciding whether I was going to become Catholic, Orthodox, but my friend said, no, try out this Anglo-Catholicism thing. So I went to Our Lady of Walsingham on a young adults pilgrimage. I didn't know anyone there. I just went there on a whim that my friend said this was a good thing to do. And I had such a powerful experience with the Eucharist there. When the priests taught us what the Eucharist was, how powerful this is, the fact that that is the creator of the universe, crucified and given for us here in the simple form of bread in every tabernacle of the world, in every mass of the world. And he's here, right in front of you, given for you. And I was basically holding back tears from that moment onwards. And every time that we would do anything Eucharistic with a benediction, a mass, I was literally holding back tears. I remember, I'd never witnessed a concelebration of the mass before, when all the priests say the Eucharistic prayer together and things like that, in a big semicircle. It just really took me back. I've never had an experience like it since, but I was just overwhelmed with the Eucharist and what it was that, I'm looking at God and God is looking back at me directly. And that peace, it was a supernatural peace that I've not experienced since. And that stuck with me for weeks. And I went overnight like that, from being very, very shy and under the radar and passive about my faith, to being very, very, very evangelical about my faith, being very out there and telling people, just go to Walsingham. You got questions, you're a bit lost enough, just go to Walsingham for a weekend.
Is that why you visit Walsingham like 1 million times a year?
I can't get enough of that place. So last year.
So that's the context behind you going there all the time.
It's a very, very special place for me. It's also I would call it the spiritual beginnings of my active Catholic participation.
I guess then that would be the moment, that would be your dot.
That's the atom bomb. That's the atom bomb of right. This is the chain reaction. It started now. It's exponentially going to get more and more insane from here. Yeah. I remember last year I was saying with one of my best friends, Cameron, that we really need to go to Walsingham a bit less. We're getting a bit desensitized to it. We need to learn to appreciate it more. I think this year is the most times I'll be going to Walsingham in 1 year. I think I'm going 4 times, and I don't get desensitized to it anymore. It's just as special every time I go back there. So to anyone watching, when you're on the way to Lourdes or Fatima or Czestochowa, just don't miss Walsingham, that you might accidentally fly over. Some people say often, people go to Lourdes, but they miss Walsingham on the way. Yeah. Go to Walsingham. It's our Lourdes in England. It's England's Nazareth. That's why I love Walsingham so much. It's a very, very special place for me.
Who is your patron saint and why?
So for my patron saint, I was very, very lost as to who to choose, because there are so many saints to choose from. I don't know which one's the best one. But in the end, I asked for permission to use the Blessed Carlo Acutis, who he's nearly canonized, but he's a very, very special young guy. I say young guy, he's actually older than me, because obviously he's in heaven now and he's praying for us. I don't know how age works in heaven, but I'll leave that one up to the angels to sort out. But he had a very, very, very special devotion to the Eucharist, especially. And I think that's what drew me to Carlo Acutis, the fact that he was so young. And, when you're that young, do you really have the intellectual capacity to be going into very, very deep Eucharistic theology and stuff? And probably not. Yeah. But the way he led his life at such a young age as well, the way he impacted on so many people's lives, the guy was a walking angel. I know that's not theologically sound, but the way his mother, who was actually fairly secular at the time, described him, she called him the young Buddha. He had such a devotion to the Eucharist. He was such a spiritual, saintly, young man when he died. He really, really spoke to me, and especially with my own experience with the Eucharist, it felt fitting that he be my confirmation saint, especially with coming from a fairly secular, maybe not completely secular, but a fairly non-religious background as well, maybe culturally Catholic, but not Catholic. Yeah. And, I come from a very culturally Christian family, but not necessarily a very fiery Christian family. And I don't know, there's something that really, really speaks to me about Carlo. And that's why I chose him to be my confirmation saint.
What is your favorite thing about the Catholic Church?
That's a good question. Out of all the things that the Catholic Church has to offer,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a question you could probably change your mind on every year.
Yeah, true. Okay, what is your favorite thing this year?
This year? That's a very good question.
Okay, let me reframe it to be more specific. What did you do within the Catholic Church this year that you will remember for at least the rest of the year?
So this year in the Catholic Church it's my first calendar year of being a single Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made me realise more and more that nothing's certain yet, but I think I might be called to the priesthood. And this is the year that I've stopped talking about it and I've started to make movements towards seminary. Right. So it's been a very tough year for me. I've dated and stuff, mm-hmm. But nothing's come of it. Perhaps the joy of the priesthood, the gift of the priesthood, is something I've particularly appreciated this year. The sacrifice of the priesthood, both in the Eucharistic sense and in the sense that priests make big sacrifices in their lives as well. Yeah. So perhaps this year my favourite thing is the gift of priests. God give us priests, God give us many, many holy priests.
You often tell me something about how people who go into the seminary often end up finding their wives. How does that work?
You wouldn't think this, but that's actually a quote from the traditional Latin Mass community. Uh-huh. And then you think, oh, no, they're so, they must be so serious and up themselves. They're not. They're some of the most wholesome, faithful Catholics I know are from the Latin Mass communities. And what they all say is, oh, Peter, you want to find your wife? Go to seminary. And they say this half joking, half serious, because so many of them have gone to seminary and found wives. One of our organists, he went to seminary, very, very serious Catholic, thought he was going to become a priest, found his wife, they're now married. Another good friend of mine, who was an ex-high Anglican, so similar background to myself, he went to seminary, found a wife. He's now married, he has several children. There is a saying in the Catholic spheres. You want to find a wife, go to seminary. I don't know what the statistic is in England, but basically a lot of men go to seminary and end up realizing that it's the married life that God's calling them to, and a lot of the time they genuinely do meet their future spouse while they're in seminary. And I don't know. There's God works in mysterious ways. So I would say right now in my life, I'm very open to whatever God throws at me. If God wants me to be a husband, let it be known. If God wants me to be a priest, I'll do it. Either way, I think if you're a very, very, very faithful, very church-minded Catholic man, there might always be a part of you that thinks that the grass will be greener on the other side. You might have a beautiful wife and many, many children and have a wonderful, faithful Catholic family life, but there might always be a part of you that wiggles away inside and thinks, oh, but what if I was a priest? How different would my life be now? And I'm sure that many, many priests feel the same way with a lot of the husbands in their own flock. They might become upset, despondent at times, distant at times, and think to themselves, oh, that could have been me. With 6 children or however many God gives you, So I don't know. It's a funny thing, vocation. I'm very much in the process of exploring it.
This last question is a tradition that started in my previous podcast with Father Toby.
Oh, he's cool.
The Dominican.
I like Father Toby. He's a cool
the Dominican guy. Scholar.
Yeah.
Now this question comes up to you. What would you like to see more of in the world?
That's a big question. I've got an idea in my head, but I don't know how to put it into words. I think the word I'm looking for is holy humility. Maybe not outside the West, because obviously we always think about our own home and our own country and our own continent before the other continents. But I think especially in the West right now, what we need is a holy, sacred humility. we all need to take a step back and realize that we are sinners. We are not perfect. We are not good. Everyone's a sinner. We have original sin. You could be a saint and you'll still be a sinner. We need to get back to those roots. We need that humility to say, it doesn't matter how much someone's wronged us. If they come back to us like the prodigal son and ask for our forgiveness, we are obliged by God, our creator, to give them that forgiveness. And if we don't forgive them, it's in the Lord's Prayer. Lord, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. Yeah. So I think that's what we need is humility right now.
Thank you for your time.
That's right. Thank you for having me, Roy.
Yes.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Wrong camera.
Wrong camera.